During the nitrogen cycle, nitrogen gas from the atmosphere is converted into forms like ammonia and nitrates thanks to certain bacteria in the soil or associated with leguminous plants. Flora, encompassing all plants and vegetation, acts as a crucial storage point for nitrogen, taking up nitrates and ammonia from the soil. They utilize nitrogen to build essential molecules for growth and functioning. When plants die and decay, the nitrogen in their tissues is released back into the soil, making it available for other plants. This recycling process ensures a continuous supply of nitrogen, sustaining vegetation growth and maintaining the cycle's delicate balance.
Good day everyone, my name is Mark Padernal and I'm here to discuss about the anthropogenic effects in investigating Flora's role in the nitrogen cycle. Humans have a significant impact on the nitrogen cycle and it's not always a good one. One major effect is the excessive use of nitrogen-based fertilizer in agriculture. While this fertilizer helps crops grow, they can also lead to nitrogen runoff in the nearby water bodies. This excess nitrogen causes algal blooms, creating dead zones in water where oxygen level drop, harming aquatic life. Another human-made problem is the burning of fossil fuels and industrial activities, which release nitrogen oxides into the atmosphere. These nitrogen oxides contribute to air pollution and can fall back to Earth as acid rain, disrupting ecosystem and damaging plant life. Overall, our actions can throw off the natural balance of the nitrogen cycle, affecting both land and water environments in harmful ways. Managing our nitrogen use and emission is essential to protect the delicate balance of the vital cycle.
Some invasive species can upset this delicate equilibrium in the setting of nitrogen cycle coupled with flora. An excellent example is the Japanese knotweed, an invasive plant that spreads quickly and outcompetes local vegetation for resources such as nitrogen. Its fast development has the potential to change ecosystems' nitrogen cycles, which will impact how readily available nitrogen is to other plants and animals. The European starling, a bird species transported to new areas outside its natural range, is another invasive species. Given that they eat a lot of crops and insects, these birds can have a significant effect on the nitrogen cycle. These may increase nitrogen runoff in agricultural regions, increasing the nutrients content of neighboring waterways and upsetting the ecosystem's average nitrogen balance. These invasive species may seriously disrupt the nitrogen cycle and the flora, highlighting the need to employ efficient management techniques to safeguard the fragile ecological balance.
The epigenetic on the nitrogen cycle is a vital process that sustains life on Earth. Recent research has revealed how plants can adjust their genetic expression through epigenetic modifications, like DNA methylation and histone changes. These epigenetic changes allow plants to fine-tune their response to varying nitrogen levels, optimizing nutrient utilization and growth. The symbiotic relationship between certain plants and nitrogen-fixing bacteria takes this a step further. Studies suggest that this partnership induces epigenetic change in both partners. These changes enhance the efficiency of nitrogen fixation, enabling the plants to access more nitrogen from the air and supporting the overall nitrogen cycle in the ecosystem.
To fully encompass an understanding of the sulfur cycle, we must venture through the attributing factors such as the epigenetics, the invasive species, and the anthropogenic effects to it. The sulfur cycle is like nature's sulfur recycling process. It involves the movement and transformation of the sulfur throughout the atmosphere, in where flora, which refers to plants, plays a crucial role as an ecological reservoir for sulfur.
Anthropogenic effects on the sulfur cycle. Human activities have a big impact on the sulfur cycle, and it's not always good news. One of the main anthropogenic effects is the burning of fossil fuels like coal and oil. When burned in fuels for energy, they release sulfur dioxide into the air. This sulfur dioxide mixes with clouds and comes back down to earth as acid rain. Acid rain messes up ecosystem, harming plants, animals, and even buildings and statues.
No particular invasive species specifically prevents the sulfur cycle in plants from occurring. Sulfur is cycled through many environmental forms as part of the sulfur cycle. A natural biogeochemical process, invasive species severely influence native flora and fauna and can upset ecosystems, but they do not directly alter the sulfur cycle. It is imperative to prevent the spread of invasive species, although their direct influence on the sulfur cycle should be a low priority. The natural geological and biological processes have the most significant impact on sulfur cycle.
Now, let's dive into the captivating world of the sulfur cycle. Epigenetic modifications again take center stage, regulating genes involved in sulfur uptake and assimilation in plants. Through these epigenetic changes, plants can adjust their response to different sulfur conditions, optimizing nutrient utilization and growth. The interaction between certain plants and sulfur metabolizing bacteria has its own epigenetic effects. Studies suggest that this relationship induces changes in both partners.
To further discuss for the sulfur cycle, during the sulfur cycle, sulfur is taken up by plants from the soil in the form of sulfates. The plants use sulfur to build essential molecules, and when they die and decay, the sulfur is returned to the soil. Some plants have special relationships with sulfur bacteria, which help them absorb sulfur from the air or soil. These bacteria convert sulfur compounds into forms that plants can use. So flora acts as a storage and exchange point for sulfur, making it an important part of the sulfur cycle's dance in nature. For the anthropogenic effects of sulfur cycle, another way we mess with sulfur cycle is through industrial processes. Some industries release sulfur compounds directly into the atmosphere, contributing to the air pollution. Also, when we use fertilizers in agriculture, they can release extra sulfur into the soil, which can lead to runoff and water pollution. These human-made disruptions to the sulfur cycle can have serious consequences for the environment and need to be managed carefully to keep our planet healthy. For the invasive species, another invasive species is the European starling, a bird species introduced to new regions outside its native range. These birds can have significant impact on the nitrogen cycle as they consume large amounts of agricultural crops and insects. And lastly, for the epigenetics, the interaction between plants and sulfur metabolizing bacteria reveals intriguing epigenetic effects. Studies suggest that the symbiotic relationship between certain plants and sulfur bacteria can induce epigenetic changes in both partners. These changes potentially enhance the efficiency of sulfur conversion and uptake, making flora more adept at using sulfur in the ecosystem. Understanding these epigenetic mechanisms in the sulfur cycle and flora as its ecological reservoir provides valuable insights into how nature adapts to changing sulfur conditions, supporting life and maintaining a harmonious balance in environment.